This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
So today, we are going to unfold the gospel a bit differently than we normally do. And the way we're going to unfold it today is we're going to start in the middle, and then we're going to work our way out. And we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to start with these three words: rock, gate, and keys. And not only are we going to do it differently, but we're going to do it differently in that you're going to talk to me today. So we're going to start with rock. And I want you just to do word association. When you hear the word rock, what comes to your mind? Christ, okay? Peter, okay? What else? Solid. Pardon me? Foundation. What else about rock? Stumble. Ooh, nice. Strength. So at first service today, Bill Predict was saying that he and Mike Dickman had been working on a project and had a big rock in the church right before the fire, the last fire. And when all was said and done and everything was gone, what was still there? The rock. Rocks are enduring, are they not? And we know, 21st century, that there are ways that you can move rocks and you can blow them up, but probably in the first century, blowing up rocks wasn't as apparent. So solid, enduring, foundation. Anything else just popping out at you? Oh, it could be a weapon. Very nice. Speaking of weapons, do you ever play rock, paper, scissors? And rock crushes scissors, right? Weapon. So we come by rock in today's gospel. Jesus has asked them a general question. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? And so they have these answers. Well, some of them are saying Elijah, and some are saying Jeremiah, and some are saying John the Baptist, and some are just saying, some old prophet. And then Jesus brings it right down. Who do you say that I am? And the gospel only records one answer. And the one answer that the gospel records is Peter. And Peter, who says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now, the early church used this very piece of scripture to create the hierarchy of the early church, and the hierarchy that would later become the papacy. So today, we all probably have some of that spinning in the back of our mind, but we're going to poke a little bit harder on what's going on right here. Because Jesus goes on to talk about Simon Peter, son of Jonah. We're going to come back to that here in just a minute. God has revealed this to you. And on this rock, I will build my church. And we're going to poke a little bit to decide what this rock is. And in order to do that, let's think for a minute about who Peter is. What are some of the Peter stories that come to your mind? So, St. Peter guarding the gates of heaven. Okay? What else comes to mind about Peter? Walking on water. So the disciples are out in a boat. It's late, and all of a sudden they think they see a ghost. And all the disciples are in the boat, but one disciple calls out and says, Lord, if it's really you, call to me to get out of the boat. That is Peter. Jesus says, come out. And Peter does. And then what does Peter do? Sinks. And Jesus immediately reaches out and grabs him. This is our Peter. What other stories do we know about Peter? The denial. Betrayal, denial. Jesus says, before the night is over, you will deny me 3 times. Oh, no, not me. I won't do that. And he does. What else do we know about Peter? Pardon me? Ah, so when Jesus is being arrested, it's impetuous Peter who draws the sword and cuts off the priest, the high priest soldier's ear. Impetuous. Yes. Peter runs to the tomb. Let's hold that for just a second. Just a few sentences from now. So Peter's just made this huge declaration. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, God has revealed this to you. On this rock I will build the church. And in just sentences from now, Jesus is going to tell the disciples what the mission and the ministry in Jerusalem looks like. Jesus says, I'm going there to die. And Peter says, over my dead body. And Jesus says to Peter, get behind me, Satan. This is our Peter. Now, it's interesting because today Jesus calls him son of Jonah. This is the only place in Scripture that Peter is referred to as the son of Jonah. There are other places he's referred to as the son of John. Now, is it an oops? Or is it very intentional? Who is Jonah? The guy who spends 3 days in a whale's belly, right? 3 days in a dark place. So this same one who denies Jesus 3 times spends 3 days in a dark place until there is resurrection. This is our Peter. So today, when Jesus says, this is the rock on which I will build my church, is Jesus speaking of Peter, the person, who doesn't always seem very rockish, you think? Not always very strong, not always very foundational, not always very enduring. Is that the rock that Jesus is talking about building the church on? Or is the rock that Jesus is referring to the confession? You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Is that perhaps the rock on which Jesus' church will be built? The second thing I ask you to think about are gates. Word association. When you think of gates, what do you think of?
Keeping livestock.
Keeping livestock in. What else? Being safe. Did I hear that? How about gated communities? What do? They're kind of exclusive. They exclude, right? Right? And actually, I've been thinking about this. Gates are actually passageways. Growing up, when we went to my grandparents' house, you went down the long gravel driveway, and then you got out of the car to open the gate, and then you drove the car through, and then you closed the gate. And then you drove up to their house, and before you could go up to the house, you had to open the gate and then close the gate after. There are passageways that keep things, people, livestock, cows, sheep, in or out. Now, interestingly, because the folks that would have heard this in first century Palestine, the gates of Hades was actually a euphemism for the inevitability and the inflexibility of death. Death was going to come, death was going to be, and today, as we are talking about this rock, we're talking about the rock, paper, scissors, the rock that crushes the gates of Hades. Death that is sure is no longer sure. Got one more piece of the puzzle here. Keys. What do you think of when you think of keys? Unlocking. And the converse is locking. The person who has the keys has some power and authority, do they not? When I worked at the state hospital, when I was doing my chaplaincy there, I was always boasting that I still had keys. That was good. I could get in, I could get out. But the person with keys has some authority and some power. So today, as we sit with this piece of Scripture. There's this way to look at what it means about this new rock, Jesus, who is Messiah, Son of the living God, who is the key that unlocks, that looses us from what we have been bound to. Certainly sin, death, and the devil, but looses us from the other things that bind us. Anger, or resentment, or judgment, or whatever those things are that have their hold on us. That's what the good news is all about. So let's open up the circle just a bit further. Because the question that Jesus offers to the disciples, and really the question that comes to us too, is, who do you say that I am? Because who we say Jesus is, who we believe Jesus to be, has everything to do with what we're going to do with that rock and the gates and the keys. Because if we really only believe that Jesus is this jolly, nice guy who did really good stuff and we should live a whole bunch like him, that's really not transformative. And if Jesus is just a really nice guy and we're supposed to try to live like him and be like him, we're going to try for a while and figure out how hard it is and then continue to be conformed to the very things of this world that hold on to us. Who do you say that I am? If we believe that Jesus is indeed the Messiah, if we believe that Jesus is indeed the Son of the living God, then we know who holds the keys. We know who has the power of grace and mercy to destroy those things that hold on to us. The question for all of us is, who do you say that I am? And we confess not for God's sake, we confess for our sake. For in the confessing, there is indeed transformation. Our lives are shaped and changed by Jesus' love and life. And as we are loosed, as we accept those gifts of grace and mercy, then brothers and sisters, it is our duty and our joy to share those keys with the next person and the next person, that they too might know the good news of being loosed. Today, the question remains, who do you say that I am? Amen.
Well, this light of mine,